guys, it's me, Minu. Welcome back to Minu's Mortuary. Today I want to talk about Scary Movie 6. Now, I didn't know there was a Scary Movie 5, so I was very worried for Scary Movie 6. I didn't watch anybody's commentary or reviews prior to making this because I wanted to have my own thoughts and opinions about it, not be influenced in any way. I'll start by talking about my feelings about the franchise in general. I did not know that the Wayans brothers left after 2. Now that I know that, looking back at some of the movies, it makes a lot of sense. Now, mind you, I'm young, so I did not see some of these even when they came out in theaters because I would have been way too young to have seen that. But I did watch 1, 2, 3, 4 at some point in my life. Didn't know 5 existed, and now we're at 6. My feelings retrospectively, as someone who's gone through liberal arts and racial philosophy, and I'm a completely different person than back when I found those movies funny, I still found some scenes from those movies to be funny. Were there still some things that I was like, it was offensive? Yes. I feel like 90s comedy, especially 90s black comedy, had a really difficult relationship with homosexuality and transgender people. I don't think that they even had a concept of transgender people. I feel like that was just kind of mished and pushed into homosexuality. Black comedy in the 90s and early 2000s was still had people who were like black men who were dressing up as fat black women, and that was the joke the entire movie. So there was a lot of things that were problematic. But do I feel like, oh, people are too sensitive, you can't make a scary movie these days? No, not really. Just because, now if this was 2016, is that the year that Trump was elected the first time? Whatever year that Trump was elected the first time, I would have 100% agreed with you, because there were a lot of people who were just now becoming socially conscious, and they had something to say about everything. They had to cancel everything. They had to call out everything that's problematic. They had to be critical of everything, and they had to be critical of any person who wasn't being as critical as they were about things. And it was that type of attitude that allowed social media to rage bait people into oblivion to where they were dumb enough to vote for Trump a first time, and then a second time, and then a third time. So 100%, if this movie came out in 2016 and it leaned very much into there are no safe places, this is an anti-woke movie, I would understand them making that movie. Not in 2026 though. Not in 2026. You know, there were some jokes where I look back and I'm like, okay, equal opportunity, making fun of everybody. But there were other jokes where I was like, you are going after the lowest hanging fruit possible, and it's not super funny. I'm not a fan of low hanging fruit jokes. I want you to do something a little bit different. Don't go for the obvious joke about a person of a certain race or religion or sexuality. And there were moments in those movies where they did that, and then there were moments in the movies where they did something else. I would say my favorite thing about the acting in those movies was that the movie was serious, but the actors and the characters were unserious. Scenes that should have been scary, like ghosts showing up or serial killers or anything like that should have been terrifying, became hilarious because the characters involved were unserious and didn't take anything seriously, or they behaved the way that you would tell your friend, man, if I was in the movie, I would have did this instead. And I really, really appreciated that in those movies because it was a good tonal mismatch that made it funny. Now, if the whole movie's unserious and all the actors are unserious, I'm not really having a good time personally. But if the actors are serious and the movie is unserious, or the movie is serious and the actors are unserious, I'm going to have a good time, because it's like having those movies where you have one person who's the comedic relief and the other person is a straight man. That same dichotomy is what I like to see in a comedy, whether that's between the plot and the characters or between individual characters. That just makes it better for me. So I was very worried when I saw the trailer of a character whose name is literally DEI, and her being killed and then being like, my pronouns are they, them, and like being super annoying and over the top, especially for her to be a black woman doing it. I feel like if it was a white woman or a white man doing it, it would have been funnier because white people on liberal college campuses, they take it up like 15 levels. And oftentimes they are very, like, they're not connected with the culture. They're not connected with the people that they are trying to defend or protect. Like, if it was a really super progressive white guy who was very performative in his progressivism, and he tries to speak on behalf of black people or speak on behalf of gay people or trans people, that would have been more funny and more topical to me. And it's not to say that black women do not become radicalized at a certain point, but it just, to me, felt like it didn't have to be her. It felt like it was a stereotype that white conservative people have in their mind, that all of the people of color are the ones that are being super radical and aggressive and annoying about all of these things. And it's not just us. It was white people first. They were the most annoying about it to an uncomfortable degree. And I just feel like it was a little bit, like, it could have been smarter. It didn't have to be just low hanging fruit. But I was very worried that the whole movie would be like that trailer, where it's them making fun of progressive or liberal people, doing low hanging fruit, doing jokes for the sake of being offensive, and not just a joke that happens to be offensive. When it comes to comedy, saying something that, oh, people say you can't say, is not funny. Like, that's why those white people get on TikTok and YouTube and they just say the N-word a bunch of times, and then they get a bunch of money from their racist white followers because they'll be like, you can't say the N-word anymore. You couldn't say the N-word in the last 50 years. But they'll get up there and they'll do that, and then people will act like they're funny. And just yelling the N-word as a white person is not funny. It just feels good to racist people because, ooh, I said the word I'm not supposed to say. I said the forbidden word. But that's not comedy to me. Like, that's low-hanging fruit. It's not creative. It's not smart. And it just would never make me laugh. So I was very scared that the whole movie would just be that, and attacking just one group of people, and like very specific stereotypes about people and not actual people. But I was happy to watch the movie and see that they boiled all that into just one character, and then the rest of the characters were completely different in the way that they were moving, and they just wanted to have that one annoying character who has to think critically about every single thing. Still didn't have to be a black woman, but it is what it is. It wasn't every single character, and it wasn't every single joke that was about punching down on marginalized groups and just offending really one specific group of people. Because saying there are no safe spaces in a trailer really makes it seem like you're attacking one group of people and not everybody. They attacked several groups of people. It just didn't feel smart. I'll tell you the plot. The plot is very loose. The plot that I could distill from watching this movie is basically that it was a parody of any Scream movie where there's a younger generation now and Ghostface is coming after them. And so they have to bring their parents in to help them fight against Ghostface. And I think that that is the loosest possible interpretation I can give you of the plot. Everything else about this movie felt like I was watching an hour-long sketch comedy show. And I say an hour long for a reason. I know that the movie's longer than an hour, but an hour long for a reason. Because the movie starts with a cold open about Teyana Taylor getting attacked by Ghostface. Is this in any way relevant to the plot? No. Is it even funny? No. Teyana Taylor is not funny. Because I didn't know exactly who she was, but then in the movie she literally says, I'm Teyana Taylor. And I'm like, okay, you're Teyana Taylor. What does that mean to me? I don't know. Apparently she sings or something. I don't know. I don't follow who this person is or why she's in this movie or why the movie is opening with her as opposed to a more important character. She doesn't even die. So it's like her not dying is like, well, maybe she's going to come back or something. No, she doesn't. I don't think she shows up in the rest of the movie. I could be wrong, but I don't think she comes back at all. It was very unnecessary to have a cold open with her. Because then you have another cold open where a character named Tuesday who looks and acts nothing like Wednesday, but her name is Tuesday because she has pigtails, does the whole thing where she gets a phone call and gets attacked by Ghostface. So I'm like, the movie could have started there. I don't know did Teyana Taylor pay somebody? Was this an ad for her. I don't know. I'm very confused as to why she was there. Instead of the movie having a kind of core plot, it was just a bunch of sketch comedy routines. And that was kind of off putting for me because don't get me wrong, I liked In Living Color. I can watch something that is like sketch comedy, scene, 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 skit, skit, skit. But when I'm watching a movie, I didn't show up to watch multiple skits strung together. I wanted there to be some kind of plot. I'm going to talk about 2 because I remember 2 more than the other ones. But with 2, they were trapped. They were in the haunted house. So everything that happened in the haunted mansion was related somehow to the haunted mansion, to them being there. You would cut to a skit, but it would still be them in the haunted mansion. It was kind of contained in that way. And they would do stupid things and stuff would happen, but it was like they were still in the haunted mansion. And I feel like this movie could have really benefited from them having one location because I was very confused as to where everybody was. Because there was locations where it was like at school, outside of school, and then in the hospital, and then at Brenda's house, and then at Doofy's house, and then at Cindy's house, and like all of these different places. And I don't think it helped the story at all because the story didn't know how to story. There were moments in the movie where I really felt like they threw away the plot for the sake of doing another skit. Like characters who should know each other were suddenly thrown into a skit where they had to pretend that they did not know each other. Like there was a scene where they were parodying the moment in Sinners when the white people show up at the juke joint and they're like trying to get an invitation to come into the building and they're playing this out. And I'm like, hold on now. You know these characters. Like, you know who they are. You just met them like either earlier that day or the day before. The timeline is fuzzy here, but you just met them. You know who they are. And now you're seeing them again. And you and them are all pretending that you don't know who each other are. Like you're asking them if they're clan and what they want and things like that. I'm like, that's your friend's daughter. You know her. You can't be like, who are you? And you just met her, so you know who she is. It's so weird how they just threw away the plot relevance there. And then there's other parts where, for the sake of a gag, it just doesn't make sense. There's so many times where for the sake of the gag, it doesn't make sense. And it kind of frustrated me because I am somebody, there was nobody else in the theater. I was literally there by myself, middle of the day, midweek. So there was nobody distracting me. I'm never on my phone when I watch movies. And somehow I'm watching a whole movie and I'm paying attention and I still feel like I'm missing scenes. Like I'm missing when this happened in between scenes to justify why this character is even in this location at all. Because I don't know what's happening. And it just frustrated me because the gags are fine. They're the same gags that you've gotten with Ghostface throughout this scary movie series, which is that he's a bumbling idiot. There are characters who are obviously the killer, but anybody who has the Ghostface mask on is really terrible at fighting. They're really terrible at running. They're really terrible at trying to kill the person. There's this whole thing where they say like, oh, we have to come together to stop Ghostface. No, you don't. He hasn't killed anybody important. Nobody important has died. Like it doesn't, he's one thing that is consistent across the movies is that he's bad at killing people. So you really don't have to come together for this. And I would have appreciated like a meta moment where they're like, but actually every time we face this guy, he's been pretty shit. Or even Shorty being like, me and Ghostface kind of cool. Cause you know, they've had multiple times in the when they were in the first movie together where they got along. Even in this movie, they got along together. So it's like, he's not really enough of a threat to make anything make sense. Another part about the plot I'm going to say too is they did not let any of the skits really breathe. It felt like they were like, you got 30 seconds to deliver this line. Go, go, go. Like they have 60 seconds per skit or something to do. They didn't let anything breathe at all. And I don't know if it's because they were scared that if they let a scene linger a little bit, that we would realize it's not funny. And so they just had to hit us with thing after thing after thing. I don't know if they feel like audiences today have no attention span, so they have to hit us with thing after thing after thing. But there were so many times where I was like, you could have let this scene breathe for just a little bit more. You could have gave me 30 more seconds in this scene instead of just bombarding me with stuff over and over again, especially if the plot is as loose as it's been. And I realized too, like maybe they were given a time limit or something, and they condensed everything and like made everything move faster. Because it also too felt like when you're watching a YouTube channel and the creator puts themselves on 2x speed, and now you have to try to slow it down because why are you talking so fast? That's what it felt like watching the movie. And it felt like they were doing that because they were trying to get to the point that was apparently the most important part for Shawn and Marlon Wayans, was at the end of the movie when they decided to throw away the whole plot in the whole movie and just go completely fourth wall break meta and start airing their grievances at everybody who played in the Scary Movies after they were removed from production after 2. And it was so frustrating. And once I realized what was happening, I was like, there's got to be a joke here, right? A skit or something. It wasn't a joke. It wasn't a skit. Like the fact that within the movie franchise that they have it's called horror movie instead of scary movie. And then at a certain point, they just threw it out and like, no, I'm talking about scary movie. I'm talking about the movie that we're in right now. I'm like, oh, okay. But they literally spent a significant chunk of the end of the movie just airing their grievances at the various actors for doing the movie. Like they're mad at Anna Faris because she was in 3 and 4, I believe. And she was like, oh, but I got to work with Charlie Sheen. You know, they're mad at Regina Hall for doing the movies after them and not holding it down or not walking away with them so that they could keep their franchise. They pull in Anthony Harris, who was in some of the later Scary Movies, just to literally be there and stand around and not really do anything. They pull Shaq in here just for him to be there and stand around. They talk about how they tried to get Kevin Hart, but Kevin Hart's too famous now, so he's not in the movie. And they're just going off on everybody. And I'm like, this could have been a private conversation. Like, this didn't have to be a conversation that made it into the movie. Like, it felt like the cameraman or the director should have yelled cut at some point, or the cameraman should have just stopped recording, or like somebody was editing and they saw this and didn't realize that this didn't need to make it into the final cut of the movie, because it is too fucking long of them popping off at everybody. Like, it's just not necessary. Y'all could have did this in an interview outside of the movie when the interviewer asks you what's your feelings about this. This did not have to be a part of the movie at all. It was so unnecessary. And so I would say overall, the plot was where this really struggled. And like I said, it is good when you have a serious movie with very unserious characters like before, because then the people who are serious in the movie, whether that's the killers or the other people around them, have to react to the fact that the main characters are just crazy psychos who are doing who knows what wherever. And it felt like that's kind of completely thrown out. Like, there's no straight man in these movies. Like, everybody is a clown. Everybody is a character. And then the plot itself is completely unserious and just thrown together. And it just feels like I'm watching a mess versus a movie that somebody actually wrote out a script on. Like, it felt like too many people were in on the script or something. I don't know. It was just confusing. Maybe if I was like looking away and looking back, I don't know. I loved In Living Color. I'm not saying that you can't have a movie length thing that's just multiple skits that are horror movie themed, but I just came in expecting this to be some kind of story, and it wasn't really a story. And I will say too, there was plenty of gags about movies that were well known, but there was some that I would have liked to see that I feel like I didn't see. So if y'all saw them, let me know in the comments, because one of the things that I liked about Scary Movie, especially the earlier ones, is that the slasher genre had been so dominated with white people. And so you have so many black people who will watch these movies and they'll say, if I was in this movie, I would do this, I would do that. I wouldn't even be involved in this movie. And I felt like 1 and 2, Brenda Meek's character really encapsulated that, because she got to be the black person who's in a horror movie who is not going to do the stupid shit that the white girls are doing. And I feel like in the past 10 years, there have been a lot of elevated white horror movies that they really missed their opportunity to poke fun at. And I don't know if Scary Movie 6, they just wanted to lean very much into like slasher, but they missed some opportunities to throw in some movies where you just could not have had a black person in that movie at all. A good example for me personally is like Hereditary, Midsommar, Ready or Not. I feel like those were horror movies where it could only be done with the white people who were in the movie and you could never have a black person involved. But I feel like they didn't. You know, will I say they got 2 laughs out of me and about 3 to 4 chuckles throughout the whole movie. So it wasn't all terrible. It wasn't like I left and there was a bad taste in my mouth and I was just mad for the rest of the day. I left the theater in good spirits. I don't think it's the worst plot ever. I just think that there was a lot they could have did. And now I need to move on to the characters. So the character that had me worried the most, because she was in the trailer, was the character known as DEI Meeks. Now, I had trouble finding her on IMDb. I had to search up even the character's name. There's so many characters that outside of the main cast, which means like, you know, Brenda, Shorty, like all of the people from the other movies, all of the new characters, I could not remember any of their names. I had to go and look up who this person was in order to find out who was playing her as an actress. DEI Meeks, or maybe they call her Day, but her name is spelled DEI, is Brenda and Ray's daughter. Her whole character is just, I am the woke progressive liberal who is super annoying about everything, and I'm extremely performative, and me being extremely liberal and stuff is detrimental to my relationships, and it gets me ultimately killed because I'm so unlikable and nobody cares about me. And like I said, if this movie came out in 2016, it would have been fine, I guess. I think it would have been so much better if Cindy's daughter was that character. Because if Cindy's daughter, a white woman, was that character, it would be so much more on the nose and aware and intelligent of a joke. By making it a black woman, it kind of leans into the stereotype that a lot of white people have, and that's all of this progressive liberal nonsense is the result of people of color, or particularly black people who went to college and now they want to make everybody feel bad about the way they live their life. So to me, it was a very missed opportunity to make that character be a white woman and make it feel a little bit more relevant to the experiences of black women. Because as black women, we often run into white men and white women who are extremely performative in their progressive ideology, and to the point where it's uncomfortable to be around them and you can't get shit done because of the fact that they are so performative and they have to call everything problematic and they have to be critical about every little thing that every person does. It's just a missed opportunity for an actor. And also, when I was watching her, I had this moment where I was like, why she sound like Keke Palmer, but she don't look like Keke Palmer? Every time this woman delivered a line, it felt like I was watching Keke Palmer give like an interview or something, because that was the tone and the cadence of her speech. And it was very confusing for me, because I was like, why did you channel Keke Palmer for this character? I don't understand, because that's not somebody who I would have picked up as this type of stereotype. You know what I mean? It didn't work for me, and it really took me out. And every time she talked, I just kept getting confused because it felt like I was watching Keke Palmer, but not her face. She died the way she died in the trailer, so it is what it is. But yeah, I felt like her character was a missed opportunity. That was her only personality trait, was to be that person. And then you have her brother, who is Brenda and Ray's son, who was I didn't know who he was, but I knew he was a Wayans brother because damn it, the genes be gening. It's so aggressively Wayans all in his face, even though he wasn't like somebody I knew. I just knew he was part of that family somehow. And his whole thing, I felt bad for him kind of because if I read this through the meta lens that parts of the movie really had, because the movie is very meta in a lot of places, it felt like he was trying really hard to like establish himself and like find his character and find his groove and like figure out who he is and what he's doing. And they're kind of like giving him advice on how to do things and how to embody the character, but he was just really struggling. And he didn't find himself by the end of the movie either. So it kind of felt like he did not know what to do with the character he was given. He wasn't given really an arc. He was kind of this guy who was just unsure of himself and was kind of there. And I think even when he was introduced, it was like he's a jock, but he's not actually good at the jock being a jock. He's not actually super athletic. He just happens to be on like the football team, I think. And then he has this girlfriend who's is sleeps around, and then like that's his character, is that he has a girlfriend who sleeps around with everybody, and they make a lot of slut jokes, which I mean they do that. It's not even something for me to really comment on with that character, because her whole thing is that she does a lot of slut jokes and then she turns out to be one of the ghost faces. And I don't know if she had a real motivation or if she just happened to be one of the ghost faces because she was in a relationship with what's supposed to be a main character. And then we have Tuesday, who was the second character that we saw because she was in the cold open after Tiana Taylor. The only thing about her is that she has pigtails like Wednesday Addams. That's it. She doesn't have the personality. She doesn't really have the face. She doesn't act like her in any way. It's literally just that she has pigtails, so they call her Tuesday. And she doesn't do much of anything. Anytime she had a line after the first scene that you had her in where she got stabbed, I was just very confused. And I was like, what is her purpose here? Like, what is she supposed to do? Like, outside of getting stabbed and surviving, she really didn't have to be in the rest of this movie. She could have been in a coma the whole movie after being stabbed, and I would have been like, yeah, that's fine. That makes sense. Because again, Ghostface as a character in these plot, like he can't really kill nobody. He's terrible at killing everybody. Even when he does stab somebody, they recover. Tuesday was completely unnecessary in this movie, and they could have left her out. Who else am I missing in terms of the kids? Cindy's other daughter, who I don't know her name and I don't feel like looking it up. She didn't give the strongest performance. Her whole performance was she was trying really, 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 really hard to be Cindy Campbell. And maybe that was on purpose, you know, if they're making commentary about, you know, the next generation trying to replace the originals and things like that. She was trying and failing to embody Cindy Campbell. And it was so weird. Her lines, her acting, it was all done in a way of like, they told me to act like Cindy Campbell. I watched some videos and this is what I think she sounds like. And it was just off the mark so often. She has this boyfriend whose name I don't care about, who is also one of the Ghostface killers. And his whole thing is that he's obviously a killer, but she doesn't realize that he's a killer. So that's his whole thing. Every line that comes out of his mouth, every joke that he makes is all just, oh, she doesn't realize I'm the killer, even though it's so obvious. But yeah, so Cindy's other daughter, who's supposed to be a main person, it's just not. I felt very like I wasn't interested in seeing her. It felt like the whole point of this movie, outside of the Wayans brothers airing their grievances, was to bring back the OG cast and get them all together in another movie, whether this is going to be the last time they come back or they're going to be in another movie. Sean's character said something about when they go to college next year and they'll come back. So it's probably going to come back, but it felt like, oh, they really wanted to have a reunion. Oh my God, I'm thinking this in real time as I'm recording, so I'm going to go on another little tangent. Do y'all remember when American Horror Story Roanoke came out? First part of that season, they had where they were acting out the haunted house stuff. And then the second half of the season, they had all the actors and the people they portrayed in the same haunted house where all the crazy stuff happened. I actually liked that season. I know a lot of people don't, but I really liked it. It was one of my favorite seasons. But I felt like that would have been a great way for them to do Scary Movie 6 instead of them doing another like Scream parody as their plot, because then it could have been them making Scary Movie 6 or Horror Movie 6 as it's in the franchise, and then all of the stuff that they did would have made sense, because then it could have been them being interviewed or them having outtakes or them having actual meta conversations with each other. And that would have made the movie so much better, because then all the meta bullshit where they're talking about Scary Movie and how the movie's been treated and how the Wayans brothers were kicked out and all that stuff, all of that would have just been normal for the movie, because they would be actors who were playing characters and then having conversations outside of the actual plot and the story and what's actually going to be on camera in the movie. It could have literally been a making Scary Movie 6 scary movie. And there's been plenty of movies out there where you're making a horror movie and then stuff happens, and they could have did that. And then all of the over the top acting and the nonsensical acting from the kids where they were playing obvious stereotypes, it would have worked so well, because then you would have got to see them switch out of that and act like a normal person. So then the stuff that you saw with Ray and Brenda's son, where he's trying to get advice from Sean and trying to figure out his character motivation and what his character arc is going to be and the role he's going to play and trying to deliver his lines effectively, that all could have been just that actual actor asking his uncle for advice. Literally, that could have been it. And it would have made all of this so much better. And it could have still been meta and it could have still been crazy. But you would have had the craziness of Scary Movie inside a serious horror movie where people are being serious and then getting haunted or attacked in real time. And what's happening in the horror movie happens to them for real. Or the Ghostface killer is supposed to be a certain actor, but it gets replaced by a different person who actually does start killing people. It would have been so much better. Oh my God. They should hire me. I helped them write this and make it better. Sorry. Okay. Back to the actors. There was another character who was the sheriff's son. Yes, the sheriff's son. And it was a trans character. And now I was worried. I was very worried about anybody who would be trans in this thing, or anybody who wasn't Ray being gay. They did not make a trans woman character, and I was so grateful for that, because it's such low-hanging fruit. And they've also made those jokes in the past, back in the 90s and early 2000s, where it's very much like, ha ha, not a real woman, whatever. And like, that's the joke. And that would have got them in a bunch of hot water, and it also just wouldn't have been funny. So they did a trans man character, and though the trans man character still has a feminine name, their whole personality is the fact that they are a trans man, and they are very, very much toxic masculinity, and they're leaning into that. And I appreciated that. That showed a level of intelligence to say, like, they are so much into the idea of being a man that they have adopted the toxic masculine characteristics and behavior patterns. I thought that was good. Was it laugh out loud funny? No. But I was just really like clenching my butthole the whole time. Like, please, please, please do not make the joke just be the fact that this person isn't actually whatever gender they say they are, because it's low hanging fruit. So I was happy to see that character. Of course, they made the joke of you're going to identify as dead. I saw that coming a mile away, but I was more so relieved to see how that character was handled, as opposed to thinking that anything about the character was funny in any particular way. But it was just like the Wayans brothers doing something different instead of the same thing that they always do, or the joke that they always go to. So I appreciate that. Okay, did I get through all of the kids? I think I did. If I didn't, remind me in the comments. So the parents, or the returning cast, I'm going to start with the people that I like the least. I never liked Doofy as a character. Shorthand comes back too in some little stuff on the side, and I remember people being like, yeah, Shorthand, like, it's so offensive and things like that because he had a weird hand. And the physical disability, I'm gonna leave that up to people who are obviously physically disabled to say how they feel about the representation there, like the guy in the wheelchair or shorthand and things like that. Because I'm somebody, while I may have some physical disabilities, like you can't tell that I have it. So people who you can actually tell by looking at them that they are disabled, I'm gonna let them have the final say on whether or not that was just super offensive and they would cancel them for making those jokes today. Doofy was a character that I never liked, and just because I don't like gross out humor. So his whole thing is that he is developmentally delayed, he is mentally disabled in some way, and he is like completely gross, doesn't wash his hands, doesn't wash his ass, drools all over the place. And those are the jokes. He fucks up everything. He's a bumbling idiot. He has no business doing anything or being anywhere. And I find him to be the most offensive, because somebody who's developmentally delayed doesn't mean that they're immediately disgusting as a person, or that they shove their finger up their butt and like things like that. Having him come back is like, yeah, sure, he's a character from the franchise, so you bring him back, but just seeing it play out, even when I was a kid and I was watching him in the other movies, I was just like, what is this guy's character arc? What is he supposed to be? Because I just never been a fan of gross out humor, so it's just not funny to me. And I would say that would be one of the things where I'm like, it is problematic, because the whole joke about Doofy is that he is mentally disabled in some way. That's the whole joke. That's all the jokes. He's mentally disabled and he's gross. That's it. There's nothing else that you can do with him, with his character. Next on the list of characters I didn't like, I'm just going down in order. And I do know that there's the newswoman character. I don't really care about her, so I don't really have any thoughts about her. I think she was fine doing whatever she was doing. But the next one on the list of people I didn't like, in the order of least liked to most liked, is Ray. I never had an issue with Ray's character because it didn't feel like he was just there to be a gay stereotype. Because if he was, it would have been a lot of like feminine gay men jokes, because that's the low hanging fruit that a lot of 90s common comedians go after, is the feminine thing and not a real man or whatever. Ray being the repressed gay jock, to me, felt like it was doing something different with having a homosexual character, or with having him like have someone else be gay who you never saw was gay and wasn't gay coded the whole movie, and then that person comes out as gay, and then Ray comes out that he's not gay. I thought that all of that was fine in the older movies. So when we see him come back, I'm wondering what they're gonna do with it. So he comes back in, and it's like a sinner's scene, but he comes into the church and he says, I'm not gay no more. And Brenda is there, having had his children, and him saying he's not gay no more, and she's willing to believe the lie to have him back in her life. So everybody in the church is cheering and praising the Lord. And I'm like, okay, this is comedic for me, because I grew up in the church. And I know I could spot several guys where I was like, repressed gay guy there, repressed gay guy there, you know? So it was a little funny to me. But then I stopped laughing, because this joke went on that he started talking in great graphic detail about all of the homosexual adventures that he had and all the different things that he was doing. And people were all getting grossed out and uncomfortable and basically saying that he's still gay because of all of those things. And I was like, it didn't have to go on so long. All the skits in this movie that they made go on like for like 30 seconds and they jump to the next skit. They didn't need this skit to go on as long as it did with Ray. I think having it to where the church is willing to believe the lie and Brenda is willing to believe the lie was good enough. You know, you didn't have to go into look at all the gross things that he did as a gay man. It was just going on too long. I didn't find it particularly offensive. I just found it that some things are funnier when they're like punchy and short, and some things are funnier when they let breathe. And this would have been a funny one if it was just short and punchy. Without all the people being creeped out by the gay stuff that he was saying that he was doing. Next on the list of characters from least liked to most liked was Shorty. So my friend said that she felt like Shorty felt like a main character in this. And I mean, I didn't feel like it was necessarily that he was a main character as much as Marlon is probably one of the very few people in the cast who threw everything into his portrayal of Shorty. Everybody else was trying their best to become that character that they were given. And I feel like Marlon fell right back into it. He was loud. He was goofy. Like, I just felt like he remembered what it was like to be Shorty. And he played that character as loud and as in your face as he did 20 years ago. And I appreciated that because everybody else felt a little bit muted. Everybody else felt that they were still trying to get into it. Like maybe they needed a few more takes to get that right. Whereas Marlon felt like he got Shorty right on the first take and was in there being loud and crazy. I think having the storyline where Shorty becomes a Twitch streamer and his loud and, crass behavior is rewarded on Twitch, and he doesn't really have to do much of anything but just be a personality, and he's making all of this money. I thought that was all great. I thought Kai Cenat being brought in for them to play games, and then Ghostface coming in and then them playing games and not taking anything seriously was all very much what I remember of Shorty as a character. So I thought that was just a natural progression for his character. He felt like he was still being himself 20 years later. And I mean, people can change, but it didn't feel like the script wanted any of the characters to change. It just felt like it wanted to age them up a bit so that they can make commentary about the Gen Z and stuff like that. So having him be the same immature stoner that he always was and being loud about it and brazen and bold about it, I thought was all totally fine. Is he my favorite character? No, but he was himself, and I would give him props for being himself. Next is Brenda Meeks. Now, Brenda is my favorite person from this series. The way she and Cindy always played off of each other was always so fun, and seeing their friendship and seeing Brenda die and come back and die and come back, like, it was always great. However, I did feel like Regina Hall was not comfortable playing Brenda anymore, because every scene she was in, every delivery she did was like they were like telling her, be Brenda, be Brenda. And she's like, I don't really remember how to be Brenda. Because it felt like Brenda in the earlier movies, she felt like how Shorty and them were, like, where she really embodied that character and she played it as aggressively as she possibly could. Like, she fully was Brenda. She was loud, she was crass, she was smart as a Black woman. She may not have acted, respectable or anything. Like, she may have still been like what we would consider ghetto or ratchet or whatever, a loud, angry Black woman or whatever. But she was still very smart when it came to being in a horror movie and being able to technically survive, but then it's like die, but then come back. She was always a very, very fun character. And I still remember from 20 plus years ago, some of my favorite scenes with her, whether it was her, making commentary about how white people always want to split up, her trying to avoid Cindy so that she can survive, her getting into a fight with the girl from The Ring. Like, all of it was always really, really fun. And she wasn't afraid back then to go there with the character and with the scenes. And throughout this whole movie, she felt so much like a background character because her delivery wasn't very strong. She didn't feel very much like Brenda. She felt like she was told to be like Ma and then just make a bunch of meta commentary throughout the movie. And that's just what she did. So most of the time she's got this bad wig on. She's walking around passing out Jello shots to teens and then making meta commentary about how she looks like Ma and she's trying to do all the things that happened in the movie, and here's her motivation and here's the Jello shots and all of those things. There was a one kind of little bit difference where towards the end she pretends that she got, I can't even remember if it was shot or stabbed, but she got injured and she was dying, and so she didn't want to go back into the house, so she was actually faking like she was dying so she didn't have to go back into the house with Cindy. And I thought that was good. I thought that was very much like something that Brenda would do, because she realizes that Cindy's about to go do white girl shit in a horror movie and she wants no part of it. So I respected that. But everything else, I just feel like she was kind of phoning it in. Like, I don't even know if she wanted to come back, maybe they pushed her to come back, like she owed them a favor, so she came to do it, but she didn't really feel like she was having fun being Brenda the way it felt like she was having fun in all the other movies. So that was kind of disappointing because she is one of my favorite characters from this franchise. And also too, she didn't feel like the kids were her kids. Like it didn't feel like she had an actual relationship with them. Like they were just actors who just met and had to pretend to be a family, which again, if they did like they did in Roanoke, it would have been a great explanation for people's bad acting in this movie, but that's not what they were doing. So it was kind of like she didn't feel like she belonged in the movie, which was weird because she is one of the most memorable characters from this entire franchise. So then moving on to my favorite character, Cindy. Cindy gave us everything, and I gotta give her the props. She gave us everything in this, and I was so happy to see it because one of my favorite things about her throughout the franchise is that no matter how serious, like the movie would be very serious and the scenes would be very serious, and then she would decide to just be completely ridiculous. I don't even know fully how to explain it because she never came off like, oh, I'm being cheeky or I'm aware that I'm acting this way on purpose or anything. It felt like she was genuinely that dumb or that airheaded in everything, and it was always really, really funny because like I can't remember if it was one or two, but when Shorty was like trying to teach her how to fight and she's like trying to fight and then someone walks by and she accidentally punches them in the face, or like she ends up getting people killed or getting people hurt just by being ditzy and just kind of airheaded. Like it really felt like she was just fully embodying that character. And it's a character that is pretty unique because in other movies, these are serious characters who end up dying in ways that you would feel as a watcher is just super ridiculous. And then there would be other characters in the scary movie franchise who would die while they're making fun of the fact that they're in a horror movie and this is a slasher or whatever. Cindy just felt like a very unique type of character. Like no matter how serious things were around her, she behaved in a way that was just completely unrealistic. Like if you met someone like that in real life, you would find them very annoying and you want to get away from them as soon as possible. But in Scary Movie, she just works. She just works as a character. It's a very unique personality that fits well into this world. But then it comes back to the point that the plot of this movie was so loose and everything is so ridiculous that having a ridiculous character in a ridiculous movie is kind of like, it's not working very well. They needed to make the plot more serious so that it can handle Cindy being completely ridiculous and dumb in the things that she decided to do. And it wasn't. It felt like there was times where she was more serious than the plot itself, which was just very, very weird personally, because I was like, wait, now she's serious? I don't know. It was just weird. But I felt like her whole delivery and her acting in this movie, it felt like I was watching the exact same Cindy that I'd seen in all the other movies. And I felt like she and Shorty were probably the ones where they did the best at embodying those characters and really bringing that feeling back to the movie, where everybody else was like trying their best to get there and they really couldn't get their head in the game. That's what it felt like. But yeah, man, shout out to Anna Faris. Just coming back to the fact that at the end of the movie, when they're all like, when the Marlon and Sean are like airing their grievances and they're like, you came back, you kept doing the movies without us and stuff, and she was like, I got to work with Charlie Sheen. So she was still kind of like being Cindy in that moment, in that super meta moment. But also that could be her reasoning. That could have been just like literally in real life. Anna Faris was like, hey, I wanted to work with Charlie Sheen and I got to, and it was fun. But yeah, I think that that's all the actors that I've gone through. There was some other people that returned, but I just didn't care about them and they were very insignificant to the story, and I can't remember their names because of how insignificant they were. So those are my main people that I wanted to talk about. Is it the worst scary movie in the franchise? No, that would be 5 because I didn't even know 5 existed. Is it the best? No, that would be, honestly, I don't know if it's 1 or 2 is the better movie. 2 is definitely very memorable to me. Like I still remember that whole story. I've watched the movie multiple times since I first saw it. I personally don't think that it leaned 100% into the anti-woke thing, which I appreciated. I do feel that it felt more like an hour of skits as opposed to an actual coherent story or a plot. I felt that it leaned more into the characters being ridiculous and the plot being ridiculous, as opposed to the plot trying to be a bit more serious and then the characters being ridiculous. Like when we saw Ghostface the first time in this series and he was like a serious killer, and then Shorty gets him high and then they start all acting crazy and laughing and joking. That's a fun moment. But if Ghostface shows up unserious, then there's really no juxtaposition in it. So I feel like it could have benefited more from being just a little bit more serious, letting some of the scenes linger, prioritizing the plot, and then letting the characters bring the ridiculousness, and then cutting out the entire ending where they are airing their grievances. Anthony Harris and Shaq were literally just in that scene so that they can stand next to Sean and Marlon while they argued and scolded people. You can't get your shit off in another time? Like it was so weird and unnecessary. And I was like, you could have cut that out and then stretched the actual plot a little bit longer and spend some more time polishing it. Like I remember watching something saying that they had to push out Scary Movie 2 so fast after Scary Movie 1, so it was a little bit more rushed. It felt like they had only a year to get this movie written, acted, produced, and put in theaters, when in reality they've probably had a very long time and we just didn't know about it. It felt so rushed, and it didn't need to feel rushed. I'm sure they're going to come out with a 7 now that the Wayans brothers are back, and I'm just hoping that they just let things breathe a little bit. I felt like this movie did not want me to breathe. So that's my feelings about it. I know I've been talking forever, but I originally recorded this and it was only like a little over half an hour, but then I realized that there was so much more that I needed to say, so it just has to be long. Thank you guys for listening. If you disagree with what I said, let me know in the comments. If there was characters that you liked or that you disliked, if there was plot points that you liked, if there was movies that you felt were missing, or movies that I missed that were actually in the movie that were parodied, just let me know down in the comments, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.